But taking it slow and taking it one step at a time and not expecting everything to change overnight is really, really good expectation management. And that can be the difference between you winning at your goals and you feeling like a failure. And I think that that's why taking small action is so important, because if you can take a small action and identify that as a win, then you're just going to feel like amazing. You're going to feel like $100 or $1,000,000, whatever. $100 is not that much anymore.
Welcome to the Manders Mindset Podcast. Here you'll find both monologue and interviews of entrepreneurs, coaches, healers, and a variety of other people, where your host Amanda Russo will discuss her own mindset and perspective and her guest mindset and perspective on the world around us. Manders and her guests will help explain to you how shifting your mindset will shift your life.
Welcome to Manders Mindset. As always, I'm your host, Amanda Russo, aka the Breathing Goddess, and I am here today with a very special guest, Sandhya Gokal, and she is a pharmacist and a healthy eating coach, and she has been in the field for about 12 years, and I am here with Sandhya today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me, Amanda. I'm so excited.
I'm excited to have you. So I'd love to backtrack a little bit. Can you tell us how you first got into the healthcare field and into pharmacy?
Oh, yeah, that's a long time ago. Okay, so I kind of just fell into it, actually. A couple of my friends and family were already in the pharmacy field, and I did my work experience there, and I just kind of liked it. And I always knew, like, I'm a very science-minded person, even as a child. So I love doing like little experiments with random things. So I always knew that I wanted to be in like the healthcare field. But I also have a bit of a dislike blood, so it was never going to be anything where I had to like see a lot of blood. So pharmacy just seemed like a really great choice because I was still like helping people, and I was still dealing with a lot of patients and being able to make change in their life. But I didn't have to see blood, which, you know, benefit for me because I get a little bit queasy, tiny bit queasy.
Okay. And so is pharmacy what you went to college for?
Yes. Yeah. So it's a 5-year degree here, and I just really loved it. Like ever since I went, it was just really, really appealed to, like I said, the scientific side of my brain. And health is pretty fascinating in general. So I just really loved it, and I've been in this that long for that reason, I guess.
Okay, I gotcha. That's awesome. And now I know you're a healthy eating coach as well. Now, when did you first get into that?
So about 5 years ago, I got diagnosed with prediabetes. And as a pharmacist, I was a bit shocked. And to be honest, I was a bit ashamed because as a healthcare professional, I like the idea that I was really healthy, and so that what I was preaching to my patients was actually something that I practiced. And so when I got diagnosed, I was really like, oh my gosh, how can I tell people to stay healthy and, you know, change their diet and lifestyle? And I can't, I'm on the precipice of diabetes as well, which is basically a lifestyle disease. So what I completely changed my entire eating habits and my eating journey. It took me about a year to get fully on board with it. And it was a really big turning point in my life. And I think after that, I realized, although pharmacy is amazing as a healthcare profession, it was still a little bit sorely lacking in the mindset side of things. Because even though we saw patients, and I helped so many patients with like weight loss and becoming healthy eaters, we never addressed like the underlying mindset issues, like all the issues that you get with eating in childhood, things like addictive eating and emotional eating. None of that was really addressed because we didn't have the time. In pharmacy, we get 15 or 20 minutes with a patient, and that's it, like for the week. Whereas I found that with my own journey, I really needed the extra time and effort to sit and be able to identify what was causing these behaviors. And I guess really needed to spend a lot of time changing those beliefs and changing those attitudes towards food. And so that's why I became a healthy eating coach, because I just found that with all my experience, I still needed a little bit more of a holistic view of healthy eating. And I found that as I became a coach, I was able to use a lot of my pharmacist knowledge as well as helping people shift their underlying beliefs and limiting factors that stop them from becoming healthy eaters. And with me, I love fun so much. It's that what make me, you know. I love playing games. I love just having fun and having a laugh. And I really wanted to bring that into the healthy eating space, because healthy eating it's kind of seen as boring. Like, it is a little bit boring. Like, let's be honest. No one looks at a, salad and is like, my day is complete. Most people are like, oh my gosh, I got to eat a salad. Like, I wish I could just have that pizza or something along those lines. And for me, that was already a mindset shift that I really wanted to be able to change, and to be able to help people see that healthy eating, it can be fun. It just makes it's just the way you look at it and just the way you approach it. And so that's kind of where I came from with my own journey. I turned everything into a big experiment. Like I did mention, I love experiments. So my whole healthy eating journey was an experiment. And I loved, seeing what the results were and tweaking my own journey. And I found that doing that, it really disconnected me from that idea of failure and that I was losing at any point. And so that really, that's the aspect I like really pushing with my healthy eating coaching and my clients. Like, it is a game. It can be really fun, and it doesn't have to always be, serious to like grinding and, boring. So that, yeah, that's what pushed me to become a healthy eating coach.
Gotcha. So you mentioned that diabetes is a lifestyle disease. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so there's two types of diabetes. There's type 1 and type 2 diabetes. There's actually three, but the gestational one is only during pregnancy. And type 1 diabetes is genetic, and it's really hard to change type 1 diabetes. If you've got type 1 diabetes, that's pretty much for life. You usually get diagnosed when you're a child. And it has a lot to do with your body's capability to produce insulin and how it functions in the body. Type 2 diabetes, on the other hand, is actually directly related to lifestyle factors. And when I say that, I mean things like diet, things like exercise, things like your weight, things like your, actually those are the three main factors. And those things are reversible. They are preventable. And when you look at the incidence of type 2 diabetes, it's a growing epidemic at the moment, especially combined with the fact that in developed countries, obesity is rising. With obesity usually comes type 2 diabetes. So when I say it's a lifestyle disease, I mean it is something that's reversible. And by actually changing your healthy eating habits and your exercise habits, that's the way you actually prevent it. So it's treatable, and I'm sure like everyone knows about, the new medications that are coming out for type 2 diabetes. But the first step needs to always be healthy eating and exercise. And so it's just one of those things that it really can be prevented, and it just takes a little bit of conscious effort and thought to take yourself off that wagon, I guess. Yeah.
No, I get that. That makes a lot of sense. So you mentioned about how you brought fun into healthy eating, and I'm curious, what helped you make this shift? Was it your diagnosis? Was the biggest thing that made this shift inside of you?
Yeah, it really was. I actually had always thought that I was relatively healthy. So getting that diagnosis was just like, oh my gosh, like I'm really not that healthy. It's a bit of a shock. Like I think anyone who gets that, like any health condition at all, is just like, oh my gosh, like I'm fairly certain I was pretty healthy before this. So that is definitely what kicked out of the shift. I will just say, like, beforehand, it wasn't like I hated vegetables or I hated healthy eat food. And because I was a pharmacist and because I had such a huge interest in food anyway, I did have a lot of food knowledge about what was healthy and what was not. I think it was just implementation that was the problem. I used to eat, even though I did have a lot of good things in my diet, I also had a lot of things that I would not now choose to eat because I know that they're not really serving my body. So I think that was a big shift. Just really consciously choosing what was actually nourishing my body versus what I enjoyed eating. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you got this diagnosis, and what was the next step you took from there?
Well, I know this is a bit of a controversial point, but I really didn't want to be put on medication. As a pharmacist, I probably shouldn't say that, but I was like, I really don't want to start medication. So I just thought, like, I told my doctor, actually, I remember that conversation. I said, I don't want to start medication. I want to try diet and exercise. And if in a year it's not worked, we will discuss medication. But before that, I really want to give it my all and give it a really good shot. Like, I don't think, even as a pharmacist, I think that it's really important that if you're on medication for a lifestyle disease, it's really important to make habit shifts, because otherwise it becomes like a lifelong thing. If you can't make lifestyle shifts, medication is just, it's a crutch a little bit in those particular cases. There are a lot of cases where it's not. There are a lot of cases where it is lifelong, and that is 100% fine. And even in these situations, it's fine, but I think it really shouldn't be the be-all and end-all. It should really, I think medication is a good chance to look at what habits you might want to change that might benefit your life in some way. And so for me, it just became, I need to change my habits. I need to change my life to suit what my body needs.
I really like everything you mentioned there, and taking note of what habits you could change before getting on the medication. Because I think nowadays in society, it's such a Band-Aid for so many things. You mentioned about what habits you want to have and what habits are good for your body. Did you change other habits outside of your eating?
Yes, I did. So for me, health consists of the 4 big umbrellas: food, exercise, sleep, and mental health. They're the 4. So I actually tried to address all 4. Food was the biggest one I targeted because for me, food was my weakness. That was the thing that was holding me back. That was the thing where I would not pay as much attention to those habits initially, but I would try and push all the other 3. I would try and sleep really well. I would try and, have self-care and take care of myself, and I would try and exercise. And I really enjoyed all those things as well. But for me, food used to be the thing that I was like, I love it. I don't want to change my food habits, and I don't want to deprive myself of anything. And that was a huge shift because the idea of deprivation comes up a lot with food. And I think that was a really big shift I needed to make. Whereas the other areas, sleep, exercise, and mental health, they were smaller shifts. I think I examined kind of each of them and looked at what habits I could make more efficient. So, for example, sleeping. I mean, you can't really make sleep more efficient. You have to sleep for a certain amount of hours. You can't really I'm really going to sleep for 3 hours today. But like looking at what is the optimal time to go to sleep and what sleep hygiene I could change. So, for example, not using screens an hour before bedtime and potentially doing something that was a little bit more active before bedtime, because that also fulfilled something like the exercise habit. But also it took me away from, the external world and put me in a place where I was a little bit more relaxed and a little bit more present with my own body. And that was very calming. And so I did have to change a lot of the other habits as well, but they were smaller shifts because they were not as, I guess, prominent. I guess like it's a pretty common fact that food is 80% of any like health change, and then the other ones make up the 20. So it was definitely there that I needed to change the other ones, but it wasn't as big.
I relate to how you mentioned about the depriving yourself in terms of food. I have a weight loss journey myself, and at one point before I fully started the journey, I struggled with the mindset of, I don't want to deprive myself of this. I don't want to, like, I only have so long to live. I'm not going to let myself not have something that I want. But then it also comes with the balance of the changing the words to be, I choose not to have this, or I choose to have this every so often. Like it's not something I consume every day or every week, you know? Is there something that helps you shift away from that mindset?
First of all, I love what you just said. I choose not to, because I think that was one of the biggest shifts I had to make as well. So I did use a really great tool of hypnosis in my journey, because I knew already that my self-control levels were not as great as I would want them. And the thing is with habit change, if you use willpower and self-control as your mainstay, your main guide through all of that, you get really exhausted really quickly. And I was just finding any time before I had tried to make a change, especially in relation to like weight loss, I would just fall off the wagon really quickly because I'd just be so tired of always trying so hard to eat healthy. And so for me, when I heard about hypnosis, and there was a specific program by Marissa Peer, who's like a world-renowned hypnotherapist, she, like, using that as a tool just was really appealing because it took away some of the energy usage that I would need to make. And so I think that was one of the biggest tools that I used in my journey. And that was the one that kickstarted me the most. The mindset shifts happened in parallel with that. So the way that worked was I would do the hypnosis every night, but during the day, the words I was saying to myself were completely different than what I was saying before. And that was one of the biggest things that had to change, because I see a lot of people come to me with the idea that, oh, I can't have that. I can't have that chocolate. I shouldn't have that chocolate. Or I shouldn't have that, piece of cake or bowl of chips. But when you start changing that to, like, exactly what you said, I choose not to, I don't want that. That is not serving me or serving my body. That is not providing me with what I need. The shift in your brain is phenomenal. It's unreal, because that desire started to go away. That overwhelming desire. Like, I used to be one of those people where if someone had put chocolate out in my workplace, I would spend like 50% of my time trying to devise a way to get back to the chocolate. I'd be like, when is my break? Like, is there, I've had such a difficult customer, I'm going to have to go and have some chocolate. And so it's like, it just changing that word from can't to don't, it was just like, that whole section of my day was gone. I was like, what do I do with all this time now? I'm going to have to like do so much more work now. It was great. So it just, like, changing the words is really important, and also changing the images. So I used to see chocolate as this, like, hallelujah. It was like this amazing angel-filled image in my head. And now, actually, I will just preface this with, I am one of those people that I can't have, if I don't want to eat something if I don't want to include it in my diet, I have to not eat it, because I am one of those people who's like, just one more, it will be okay. So I know that about myself. And so for me, I have to make my imagery so that I don't want to ever eat that thing. because if I know if I have one, I'm not going to be able to stop at one. So the way I see like food that I don't want to eat now is like as if it's poison for my body. And that is very specific to me. I'm not saying that everyone should see it like that. Everyone's imagery should reflect what they want within their healthy eating journey. So if you want to have like a piece of cake for a special occasion, that's great. You should know that, and you should be able to say, this is what I'm choosing. And then your imagery should reflect that. Cake is a special occasion thing. I only want to eat cake if it's, you know, really like appealing, really a particular flavor, or, you know, it's a mud cake, or it has a particular decoration, something like that. And when you start putting that imagery in your head, all other options, your brain will reject them. They'll be like, well, it doesn't fit your criteria, so why are you going for that? And for me, my image is that like any sugar is a little spiky ball, similar to what you would have seen like in disease videos. There's like spiky balls that cut through your blood vessels and things like that. And for me, that worked really well because as a healthcare professional, I was like, I don't want to put that in my body. Like that's damaging me. So every time I saw it, I would just reinforce that picture and reinforce those words. And it became a lot easier to avoid those foods without any effort.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I love how you mentioned all about the power of words. That's something I've touched upon with so many different guests, just about how even if you don't say it out loud, even if you say it internally, like it affects your brain, your behavior. It affects so much more than anybody wants to realize. So I agree with everything you mentioned on that. But I'm curious how you first discovered the hypnosis and how you went down that path.
So I've always been a really big fan of personal development since I was a kid. And I've always been a big fan of experimentation. So when I heard about the hypnosis, I was like, I need to see if this works. Because let's be honest, like if anyone thinks about hypnosis without knowing what it is, I'm fairly certain the image that comes in your head is someone swinging a coin back and forth and making you talk like a chicken. Like something like that. So I was like, ooh, is it actually going to do that? Like what's going to happen? So when I came across it through a company called Mind Valley. Actually, I think a friend had recommended it in the beginning as well. She just said that I might like the videos. And so I watched her YouTube channel. I watched everything that I could find on her. And finally, I was like, I really like the message she's saying and I really want to try it out. And so I got it. And hypnosis is interesting. So it's a really well-studied field, and it is very effective. And people have used it in things like pain relief. There have been studies that show that hypnosis is as effective as an analgesic in surgery. And that, to me, like when I read the scientific data behind it, I was like, this is so intriguing. Like, I need to see if this is actually, if it works and if it's going to be applicable to something like weight loss, which is such a huge hot and button topic, you know? Like everyone I know has something about their body they want to change. So if hypnosis was going to work, I was like, I need to know if it's actually going to work. And so that's how I came across it. And that's what made me try it, because I just have a very curious mind and I just wanted to know. Like, it's also a little bit skeptical. I was like, ooh, I don't know if this is 100% going to work. So I just need to see if it's actually legit or if it's, you know, just some kind of hoax that people are, you know, have been hypnotized into like believing works or whatever it is. So,
okay. And so you said you watched a bunch of different videos. So was the hypnosis a bunch of videos that you got to watch, like virtually?
No, the hypnosis wasn't videos. The videos were just more on her work. I guess it was probably marketing videos, but the hypnosis itself they're just tracks that you listen to. And it's almost like you are meditating in a way. You have to be in a room. Generally, you'd want to be by yourself so you don't get interrupted by noise. And then you just listen to these tracks and they tell you what to do. And it's just really relaxing. I actually found that doing it before bedtime was really good because it helped with sleep as well. It was very calming and it just relaxed your body in a way that just lying in bed doesn't. And they basically tell you what to do, especially if it's something like self-hypnosis. So you have two options. You can either listen to a recorded track or you can go to a hypnotherapist and they will act as the recording because they talk you through it. But I chose the self-hypnosis route and it was really relaxing. So I used to do it just before bedtime, and I'd highly recommend if someone's going to do hypnosis to do it before bedtime because it also aids with sleep, which is a huge benefit. I found that it's usually like around half an hour to an hour track. And just that time, you just relax and your muscles kind of just relax. But there's not really a better way to say that one. And you just float off into sleep, but you're not actually asleep. And then when the track finished, and I found this super fascinating, the track finished and I would wake up. So I would know that I was actually not asleep. There was something going on and I would actually recognize that that was the end of the track. But by that time, I was really like tired and I was also very relaxed. So it would drift off into sleep really nicely. And so I think that's one of the really big benefits of hypnosis as well, that it does aid with sleep, even if it's not a hypnosis for sleep.
Okay. And can you share some of what they said during the hypnosis? Like during the tracks?
So I can't remember everything exactly because I wasn't. So the idea of hypnosis is that you move from like a beta brain waves, which is currently what you're in, to an alpha brain wave. And alpha brain waves is like your subconscious. So you're functioning at a level where you're not really aware of what's consciously going on around you, which is why it's really important to be in like a really safe space and usually by yourself, because then you're comfortable in that space. And so the idea is, even though you're not consciously aware of what is being said in the hypnosis track, your subconscious is actually absorbing all that information and making those changes and making those neural connections in your brain. So some of the things were because I did the one from Marissa Peer, her big message is I am enough. And that was repeated multiple times throughout the track. And I found that just that message almost made a really big difference because that's something that a lot of people struggle with, especially with weight loss, healthy eating. You feel like it's easy to feel like you failed when you can't get it right. And so I think just having that message go over and over through the hypnosis track was really useful because it did eliminate a lot of that failure mindset. Also, it was a lot of the recommendations that she made through her like hypnosis and her diet program, which I didn't follow it completely because some of those guidelines didn't fit for my lifestyle, which I think is really important in any healthy eating journey. Like it has to be tailored to what you want. So some of those things I just couldn't do and I just didn't want to. So they were there in the track. For example, cutting out dairy completely. We did try it for a while and it was just not working because we like cheese. It's just one of those things, cheese is life. So that it was there in the track, like, these are the foods that you don't like. These are the foods that you do like. But we just didn't abide by those rules, I guess. We made our own rules. We forged our own path. And it was just very like uplifting. A lot of the content was very uplifting. It's very hard for me to say exactly what's in it because, like I said, it's a half an hour to an hour track. There's a lot of information, but it is very much an empowering track that the words are there designed to make your subconscious believe that this is what you want. And I think that's really powerful in itself.
Okay, I gotcha. No, that makes sense. I was just curious about an example. Okay. Now, you mentioned earlier when we were talking about the power of words, about making the imagery what you want it to be. Is that something you learned through the hypnosis program?
it's something I learned through hypnosis, but also through my own like personal development journey, and just, I guess, my own research. So I guess everyone knows the power of vision boards. And that's a classic example of how imagery can really affect your outcome. Having something in front of you that you see every day that shows you what you want trains your brain to want that too, and to guide you to the opportunities that get you there. And vision boards are generally external, but the internal imagery, that's actually what makes the biggest difference. So let me give you an example, and I'm going to use weight loss because we have talked about that quite a lot. If your imagery in your head is that you are overweight, that you are fat, then no matter how much you make changes, your brain is going to accept that that is your reality, and it's going to bounce you back to that because that is what's comfortable. And that's what you're imagining in your head. So it's really, really important to change the imagery to what you want to be. And for some people, that can be really difficult because especially if you've never achieved what you want to be, it can be really difficult to imagine yourself as something that you've never seen yourself as. So the way you do it in that kind of case is choose images that are similar to what you want to look like, and then imagine yourself as that. So the brain's really interesting. You can't imagine what it doesn't know. So that's why it gets harder for people who have never achieved it. But if you have ever achieved weight loss, the image that you have in your head could easily be of you at your ideal weight. And if you hold that image in your head as much as you can, it's much more likely that you're going to achieve that and stay with it. And that's really challenging. So I'm doing an experiment currently where I don't look in a mirror except for once a day, because I found that the image in my head is great. Like, I have achieved that part of the equation. I know what I want to look like, and I'm very comfortable with how I look in my head. The minute I see myself on camera or in the mirror or in a photo, that's when that external that external imagery starts affecting my internal voice, being like, is that actually what I look like? Like, maybe my image in my head is wrong. And so you really want that image in your head to be the main thing that you see, and the external things to, I guess, complement that. And so if those external images are not complementing what you want, then that's when you need to change the equation. That's when you need to say, maybe I shouldn't be looking at those external images as the truth. Maybe my internal image is the truth, and the external images are just distortions. And so that's a classic example I love using, because that's probably one of the biggest hurdles to any healthy eating habit change, or any health change at all. If you can't visualize yourself or what you want in a way that meets what you actually, like, your ideal, it's very hard to get there and stay there. The staying there part is the challenge in those situations. So it's really important to change that imagery. And I think, like, once you nail that bit, if you can change the images you see in your head, that's really it's a really big step towards your journey. That's like a game-changing power up, really. So there's this really great tool I like to use where it's almost like a small meditation. And what you have to do is you just imagine yourself as you are now, and then imagine that that's a painting, and you just paint over that with white paint. And then you can start recreating yourself as you want to be. And when you look in the mirror, it's really easy to be like, I want my chin to be a little thinner. I want my belly not to be as round. I want my arms to be thinner. This is your opportunity to recreate that. You can draw and paint whatever you want. So you've got your blank slate, and you start painting, and you create your image in the ideal of what you want. And then you take a picture of that image, and there's a door on the other side of that room. You take the image, put it in your pocket, you walk through the door on the other side of the room, and then you float up into your, like, out of your body, and you pop the picture down, and that is your reality. Now, it's better in an actual meditation situation, but that's the general gist of it. And what that does is it actually allows your brain to see that as your future reality. And again, that's when your brain will start seeing opportunities for you to create that, because in your brain's mind's eye, which sounds a bit convoluted, but you know what I mean, that's already happened. That's already happened in the future. So that we're just trying to get you there. And so I think that's one of the, like, it's a really great tool. The other one is just take it one step at a time. So I also think it's really important to take things slowly. So some people are not big picture people. Some people just need to see the next step. And I'm like that too. I just can't focus on the end goal. I really need to just look at what exactly needs to be done for the next step. So I'm going to use eating more vegetables as an example, because in any healthy eating journey, eating more vegetables is pretty key. So if you just examine where you currently are at, and then you add one step further. So for example, when I first started, I was probably eating 3 to 4 serves of vegetables a day, but I knew I wanted to increase that, because increasing your vegetable intake really can satisfy a lot of those nutritional needs that sometimes cravings can, come up because of that. So for example, if you want a piece of chocolate has a lot of magnesium. And so eating like more vegetables that have magnesium in them, such as green leafy vegetables, that can actually satisfy that craving. And when you have more serves of those, you'll notice that your satiety goes up, your desire for chocolate goes down, because you've nutritionally satisfied that need. And you just generally feel a lot more energy, you feel a lot better in your gut health. And so that's what I usually say to focus on for those people, because if you just take one, like if you just look at exactly what the next step needs to be, and you know what your end goal is, you know what the end game is, but you just focus on that one step, it's like leveling up. You're just going one level up. You're not going from level 1 to level 100, because at level 100, you're not going to know what you needed in all those other levels to make you stay there. And I think that's the way I like to look at it. If you're playing a game, you don't want to actually level up so fast that you don't know how to handle it. It's like, I don't know if you've ever watched a game of Kingdom, like Zelda Kingdom of Tears. Is that the new one that came out recently? I was watching someone play it the other day, and he kept trying to attack monsters that were like 10 levels above where he's at, and he kept dying. And I was like to him, why are you attacking these monsters? Like, that you're going to die. Like, stop doing that. And he's like, yeah, but I feel like I can do it. And I was like, no, but like the logical way to do that would just be go one level, monsters who are one level above you, gain those experience points, gain those skills and weapons, and then go and attack the ones that are killing you and like shooting fire at your body. And I asked him, like, why are you going for monsters that are so high above you? And he was like, no, but I'm sure I can defeat them. They're right in front of me. And I think that's the lesson here, because if you try to like take the next step, but it's not the next step you should be taking, generally you might find that you fail a lot at it. And that, instead of looking at that as a failure, it might be good to just take a step back and say, like, is this really the next step? Should I break it down a little bit more? Should I go for something a little bit smaller, achieve that, and then move on to the next step? And I think that's a really great way to keep winning and keep achieving. And it also builds up that success slowly. And I know it's really great to be able to achieve 0 to 100 straight away. It feels amazing. But in health, the main goal is sustainability. If you want to be a healthy eater and you can't sustain it, then you're going to feel like crap. So it's better to take it slow and maybe not feel amazing in the beginning, but by the end of it, you'll look back and you'll be like, that I don't even recognize that other person. So small changes are really important. I think that's one of the really big lessons that I learned through my journey, and it is something that I feel so passionately about. Change is hard. habit change in particular is you're rewiring your whole life basically, and you're trying to create a new person and create a new identity for yourself. So it's really important to take that slow and really important to make small actionable changes that you can do consistently rather than going for like those big impressive wins but that last for a day or two and then you just slide back down into like old habits.
I love everything you said there. And I completely agree with the one step further. Like, that's something I try to emphasize in all areas of life, especially health and nutrition, but all areas, because people expect to be here and go from here 20 feet down the line. And regardless of what the area of life is, it's unrealistic. Even like, and I'm big on analogies and quotes. Those are my things. So I love your analogy of the game, but it's so true. You can't go from level 1 to level 100. Like, it's just not, it's not going to happen. And if you're not high enough of a level, you're not going to kill the guy that's that level. You're just not going to do it. You know? Logically, it's not going to happen. I love that comparison. I really do. That fits. I'm not even a big video gamer, but like that fits so logically to me. And I'm like, bro, why are you trying to kill that? Like, I'm picturing a dragon in my head. And I'm just like, why are you trying to kill this dragon when you are not high enough of a level to kill the dragon? The dragon's going to eat you. Like,
That did actually happen in that video once.
but I love that, you know? Like, I think it's so important to realize taking one step and not trying to take 500, because yeah, it'll give you a huge ego boost going from 0 to 100, but it's also a huge ego drop trying to hit 100 and not, you know, like, whereas aiming for that one step, hitting it, being successful is much better, even if it takes you longer, and then you're sustainable with it. Even like you mentioned, the goal of health is to be sustainable, not to do it a handful of times. That's with any and everything. If you don't do it consistently, change doesn't come from what you do once in a while. It comes from what you do consistently in every area, whether you want to develop your business, whether you want to change your health, change your mindset, change your whatever. It's not gonna happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100% agree.
I'm curious, is there something that helped you realize the power of taking habit change slowly?
There's probably not one thing in particular. Like, it wasn't a pivotal moment. I think it's just built up over years and years of experimenting with different things, of trying so hard with different habit change, with different habits that I needed to change. And specifically around weight loss and around crash dieting. I think that was like, let's be honest, everyone has tried a crash diet. I don't think there is anyone I've ever met who's not tried to change something for 30 days in their life. And unfortunately, like, just seeing the repercussions of that made me realize it's not worth changing things in a big way, because unless I change everything in my environment, which is what I did in 2019, that was a big change. But I had a lot of things going for me because I made the commitment that was it. Like, I wasn't going to half-ass it. It was going to be it was going to be for good. And I was really lucky in that I had the support of my partner, who decided that he was going to do it with me. And so we had each other to, you know, reinforce those boundaries, reinforce that this is what we're doing. And I think that was definitely something that was a big game changer for me. But even in that journey, I had to still take it slow. I couldn't expect, and it was a little bit of an uphill I guess, grind for the first month or so, especially in terms of setting boundaries. I think people don't realize when you make healthy eating habit changes, setting boundaries is really important because people have seen you as one particular way for so long. It's not just you. You see yourself in a particular way, but other people see yourself like you in a particular way as well. So if you have been someone who goes to an event and you're, always enthusiastic about the food and you're always the first one to be like, give me a slice of cake at the wedding. People like familiarity. People like to see what they know. And so when you turn around and you're like, I don't want a piece of cake because I don't eat cake anymore. Or, I want more of the salad. People are going to feel really threatened. And they try their hardest to convince you that that's not who you are. And I think setting those boundaries is super hard. But taking it slow and taking it one step at a time and not expecting everything to change overnight is really, really good expectation management. And that can be the difference between you winning at your goals and you feeling like a failure. And I think that that's why taking small action is so important, because if you can take a small action and identify that as a win, then you're just going to feel like amazing. You're going to feel like $100 or $1 million, whatever. $100 is not that much anymore. $1 million every day. Yeah. So I think it is really important to take it slow and just recognize that it is a journey. It's not a race. It's a marathon and it's a journey, and it's okay to have ups and downs, but you really want those ups and downs to be small ups and downs, not massive ups and downs, because that's when you start hitting like danger zones of feeling like you're a failure, feeling like you're not achieving what you want, and feeling like you're not enough. You're not good enough to actually to be what you want to be. So, yeah.
I love how you touched upon boundaries with other people, because that's something I faced so much with my, I call it a weight loss journey. Fitness journey, because so much of my identity changed. And from the foods I was eating to, well, now I'm going to the gym this many times a week. Well, now I'm going on a walk every single day. And I don't want to call it backlash. I more so want to call it resistance. And it was often from the people I loved and was the closest to. And it wasn't in terms of them not wanting me to be healthy and not wanting me to have positive habits. It was more so in the concept of unfamiliarity and them not being used to this certain identity of who I am. And it was almost like they were trying to pull me back to the version of myself that they knew and were most comfortable and familiar with. And setting those boundaries, it's very difficult. Even more so when your habits start to change. And as enough of your habits start to change, it's going to start to affect how you show up around the people that you're close with. Maybe that's not drinking on Taco Tuesday. Maybe that's not eating what you used to eat. Whatever it may be. But as your habits change is uncomfortable for everybody. And it was very difficult for me to set the boundary. But when I was able to come to the concept and come to the terms that they're not trying to pull me back because they don't want me to be successful, it's more so a lack of comfort and a lack of knowledge on their part, which knowing so made it feel better for me personally. But I think setting that boundary with other people also helps and encourages you to embody that new identity even more so.
Yeah, I 100% agree. It is definitely the unspoken, like, little unspoken level that everyone misses, really, because if you can't change those boundaries with the people you love, and I agree with you 100%, it is actually usually the people you love because they care for you so much. They see themselves as a part of you. And that's where they feel really uncomfortable and threatened almost, because if you're making a change, they can sometimes feel like it's a reflection on their habits and a reflection on them. And I think that's where it becomes really difficult. I love what you said about you feel pulled back, because the way I see it in my brain is it's like a big elastic band, and you're in this elastic band and you're pulling one direction and they're pulling the other. And so you've got that huge amount of resistance. And the idea is to stretch that rubber band out so that it's okay for you to be on the other side. And they're okay with it too. But it does take time to pull that and increase that elasticity. So, yeah. So we've talked about changing the images and the words. We've talked about setting boundaries, and we've talked about taking it slow. Consistency is probably the biggest guarantor of success. It's the biggest thing. So that if you can be consistent with whatever you choose to change, that's probably going to be the biggest determinant of whether you're successful or not. So when I say consistency can look different for everyone. It can look different from day to day. And I think, like anything with habit change, you have to be a little bit flexible. I'll give you an example. My consistency is if I can do 5 minutes of a workout every day, that's consistent. But if I do 30 minutes of a workout, that's also consistent. So I think it really just depends on what you define as consistent. And I really like, I've spoken about this already, but I really like making your consistency bar really low, because I like feeling like I'm winning. I don't want to feel like I lose. So, and I learned that very early on. If I set my goal too high, it's really hard to be consistent. It's really hard to feel like I've achieved anything that day, especially if I don't. So I like setting it super low. And then if I've done extra, I just feel like I'm so good about myself. So yeah, consistency is the cherry on top of the winning formula, really.
I really agree with all of that, and just how it's so powerful to be consistent, but also determining what consistent means to you, because consistency is different for everybody. And I really love how you touched upon almost setting yourself up to avoid disappointment by not setting, strenuous isn't really the word I want to use, but too big of a goal or something to be consistent in, that you're not setting yourself up to not achieve that, which I think is great. I love how you talked about being flexible in the day-to-day. This is something that throughout my life I've kind of been on a seesaw with. For I really have. For the longest time, I didn't have any type of morning or evening routine. I kind of just wung it, went with the flow, and I never liked that I did that. Then years later, I developed this morning routine, and it was great, and I loved it, and I thought it was helping me thrive. But my morning routine took me about at least 3 hours to complete, and yeah. You looked at me like I was nuts. You just looked at me like I was nuts.
No, I'm actually laughing because I had the same issue. I was like, I'd start at 9 o'clock and I'd be like, it's not a morning routine anymore. It's already like
that was me, and I was waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and then some days I was not having enough time with waking up at 3 a.m. So I was starting to wake up at 2:30 in the morning, my morning routine so that I could be nice and relaxed. Well, by like 12:30, I was exhausted because now I had been up for 10 hours. Yeah, I know. You live and you learn with a lot of things in life. But I was working with this friend of mine who's actually a transformation life coach, and he was like, Manda, you are spending 3.5 hours on a morning routine. How is this relaxing and energizing you? Like, it's not really doing that. And he helped me realize there's different seasons of life, you know? And I actually spoke to a different woman on the podcast recently who talked about like the 8 dimensions of wellness and how you can't really prioritize every single thing at once. So you can't give 100% to everything, you know, and every single day is not going to be the same or look the same. So like there should be flexibility in every single day. That was something that I also struggled with so much so. Like I do a cold plunge every morning, and now there was a day that I was like traveling with my boyfriend at the time a couple months ago, and I wasn't able to do one because we were literally in the car the whole day. And I was so mad. I was in such a mood because I didn't do my cold plunge and I didn't stick to my morning routine. And I was pissed. And my friend was like, Manda, you're ruining your whole fucking day because you didn't do it one time. But it's like, what does consistency mean to you? Like, it's not you doing it for no reason. You didn't have water to do a cold plunge with. Like, you were in the car. Like, he's like, what did you want to do? And I was like, listen, they've got showers, like, at rest stops. We could have stopped. But he was not for me to do one. And, you know, I was a little pissed. But, you probably think I'm so crazy right now.
No, I actually don't. I understand where you're coming from. And I think it's actually really funny how we put ourselves in these situations where we're like doing something to relax, and then when we don't do it, we're like, I'm so angry, and it's like, well, I was relaxed before I thought about doing it. Like,
anything that helped you be able to be more flexible in your day to day?
I think it was a similar story to yours. I think I was just getting really stressed out about not being consistent with my huge goals. Like I had not 3-hour morning routines, but I had like hours. Like I wanted to do at least 1 hour of exercise. I wanted to have like so many, you know, like eat 3 perfect meals every day. And because I wasn't achieving that, I was just getting really stressed out. And so I just realized it's okay to not be perfect every single day. It's okay to be a little bit imperfect, but be more relaxed and enjoy my life. And I think that's what really tipped the scales for me. Like I really needed to enjoy myself. And when I wasn't enjoying it, I was like, this is not worth spending so much time being stressed about. If I change my view on what is consistent and I'm a little bit more flexible, well, I'm going to enjoy myself a lot more. And that's more important to me. So it came down to what's important. Is it important to be perfect, or is it important to have fun? And for me, always that answer is going to be have fun. So, yeah.
That makes a lot of sense, defining what it meant for you. That makes so much sense. I love all that. So I want to backtrack a little bit, and I'd love to hear more about what type of coaching and how you work with your clients on healthy eating.
Okay, so I work by turning the healthy eating journey into a game. So I really like to get people's individual fun styles and create like a healthy eating program that is very tailored to them. And when I say program, it's not really even a program. We just look at what would work for their life and how to make it fun. That's essentially what I do. And along the way, I like to look at it as one of those like treasure maps. Like we look at, all the underlying beliefs, and we create what their identity would want to be. And so we go through as if it's a journey, and I'm the person holding the light in front of them and they're forging the path. They're telling me which direction they want to go. And it really is like a game for me and my clients. We work together and we just have so much fun along the way. But I'm a really big advocate of celebrating wins. And I think that's the benefit of having a coach. When you do this on your own, it can be so easy to forget to celebrate. Like, how often have you done something and you're like, okay, I've finished one goal, I have to move on to the next one. But it's really important to celebrate what success you've had. You know, it's actually a really important step to just consolidating that win as well. So in the back of your mind, you're not like, oh my gosh, it's always a hustle. And I think that's where having a coach is really important, because we're there as your cheerleader. So if you do something amazing, we are going to make you celebrate. That is part of the journey. So yeah, that's how I work. I really like just analyzing what makes things fun for specific people. I'm really curious and I really like asking questions. So I'm very nosy, but I do that because I know that there is no one size fits all. Every person's journey is different. Every person's fun is like, the idea of fun is different. So yeah, that's how I work.
I gotcha. Now, do you work with clients one-on-one?
Yes. Yeah, one-on-one. I find that working in a group setting, you start to get into that territory where you have a one-size-fits-all kind of mentality, and I don't really like that. Like, like I said, because everyone's journey is so different, I don't want someone to feel like it's not working for them. It has to be, if it's not working for someone, that means that they're not going to achieve results. And at the end of the day, when you want to be a healthy eater, when you want to make health change, you want to win. There is no one out there who doesn't like winning. So it has to work for both people. And I just find that one-on-one is just the best way to do that.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I definitely agree, especially health-related things are not a one-size-fits-all for everybody. Completely agree. So I typically end my podcast with 2 segments. Have you heard of Jay Shetty?
Yes, I love him. He's amazing.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. Now, he has these 2 segments that he ends his podcast on purpose with, and I kind of stole them, and I'm using them to end my podcast with.
I love that.
The first segment is called The Many Sides to Us, and there's 5 questions, and they need to be answered with 1 word each, okay?
Okay.
What is 1 word someone who is meeting you for the first time would use to describe you as?
Smiling.
Number 2. What is 1 word that someone who knows you extremely well would use to describe you?
Cheeky.
What is 1 word you'd use to describe yourself?
Curious.
What is 1 word that if someone didn't like you or agree with your mindset, they would use to describe you?
Oh. This is a difficult one. Can I use on the fence as one? Like, yeah.
Yeah. What is 1 word that you're trying to embody right now?
Determined.
Okay, the second segment is the final thought, and these can be answered in a sentence. Number 1. What is the best piece of advice you've heard or received?
In relation to healthy eating habits? Or in general? Oh,
in general.
Okay, in general, it's not personal in relation to raising a baby.
Okay.
Like when a baby's crying, it's not personal. Like that saved me last year. So that's why that's the one.
Okay, good to know. And number 2, what is the worst piece of advice you've ever heard or received?
Just do it. But only in relation to like self-control. When people are just like, oh, just do it. Because you should just be able to do it.
Okay. Number 3, what is something that you used to value that you no longer value?
Sugar.
Number 4, if you could describe what you would want your legacy to be, as if someone were reading it, what would you want it to say?
Oh my gosh, these are really hard. Like, you think it's going to be easy to answer these questions. It's like being on a radio show for $1,000. Okay. I always think like, oh my God, I'd be so much better than the person on the radio. But now I'm realizing I would definitely not be better. I would be much worse. Okay, so I think that would be like, it's a good thing to have fun, and you can find fun in everything. There's a way to have fun in everything.
I love that. Love that. That's beautiful. Last one. If you could create one law in the world that everyone had to follow, what would it be? And I'm going to want to know why.
Okay, that's easy. Each their own. And the reason I say that, like, if it has to be specific, everyone should be allowed to live their own life the way they choose, as long as it's not harming someone else. And the reason I say that is because we live in a society where it's really easy to disparage other people and their journeys without knowing all the details. And we really only see what people show us. And I think it's really important to support people no matter what. And like, just if you don't have something nice to say, you should just not say it. Like, I don't know. I'm very much like that. I just really believe that people should just be allowed to be who they are, to live the life the way they want to, as long as it is not hurting anyone else. People should just be allowed to do that.
I completely agree with all of that. I love how you mentioned if you don't have anything nice to say. Growing up, my Mimi used to say that to me from as young as I could remember up until she passed, even when I was like 15 years old. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. Like,
yeah.
Why do you gotta be an asshole? Like, just honestly, excuse my language, but honestly, like,
yeah, I think it's we live in a world where social media is pretty prevalent, and it is really easy to say something mean about someone you've never met somewhere on the internet, like hiding behind a computer. And I just think, like, it's so easy to just pass by and just not say anything. Like, you don't have to. So I think, yeah, as long as it's not hurting anyone, just don't say anything.
Preach. Completely agree with that. Well, thank you so much. I do have one more question for you before I let you go. But I'm curious what resources you use consistently to be successful.
Resources I use consistently. Yeah, that's why I'm just trying to think. So, could you have an example for me? Like, I know what resources are, but it's just a very broad question. I just don't want
to. So like I had one guest tell me audiobooks. He's an author, and something that's really helped him was audiobooks. One woman, she practices EFT, so EFT was one of her things, and stretching was one of her things. However you take it, like resource-wise, it could be something professionally that it helps you be successful, maybe personally.
Okay. So resources that help me are alone time. I'm a bit of an introvert, and even though I love hanging out with people, I love playing games, I love having fun, I need my alone time. And I think recognizing that is really important. So my main resources. If I don't have alone time, I'm a bear. Like I need alone time. But also I need to exercise. And it's actually pretty easy to combine those two as well. So if I have alone time and I have exercise time during the week, I'm usually pretty successful in whatever I do because I know I've taken care of myself. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's really powerful. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. And thank you for your patience with all the technical difficulties. I super appreciate it. And where can the listeners connect with you?
So I have a Facebook group called Cracking the Consistency Code. It's all about healthy habits, not specific to healthy eating habits, just health habits, but happy for if someone needs something like if someone is working on something and they would just want to be consistent, absolutely you can join. You'll find there's a lot of people there who are really supportive, really understand what it means to be flexible in consistency, but also really trying to be consistent. And I post there every day with different helpful hints, tips, and because I love games, a lot of my posts are going to be very gamified. So be prepared to have some fun. I also hang out on Instagram at Sunshine and Sandy Pants, where you'll find a lot of videos and just helpful hints on experiments that I'm running and things that might just be fun things to do. And then you can also find me on my website, www.sandhyagokal.com.au. That's where you see a lot of the evidence-based research that I use in my coaching, things that I find really helpful and want to pass on. And just you'll also find sometimes recommendations for games that might help with your healthy eating habits journey and just any health journey really. So yeah.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. And I will link all of the info in the show notes. And thank you guys for listening to another episode of Amanda's Mindset.
Thanks for having me, Amanda.
Of course. Thank you so much. Hey guys, Amanda's here to wrap up a few key takeaways from my fun conversation with Sandhya. So Sandhya and I discussed how any type of habit change is very difficult because you're essentially rewiring your brain and who you are. And she gave 4 biggest suggestions for any type of habit change. The first suggestion was changing the words you say to yourself, the words you say out loud to other people, and changing the images that you see in your head. The second thing was setting boundaries with other people, which is difficult, but it will help you reinforce that identity. She also suggested to take it slow. Take all of it slow. Take the new habit slow. Don't try to start too many things at once. Take the setting boundaries slow. Do all of it slowly and incrementally. And Sandhya gave a really great analogy about leveling up in a video game and how you're not going to go from level 1 to level 100. So you need to progress and level up slowly, just like you need to change your habits and implement them slowly. Then the last piece of advice she suggested for habit implementation and habit changing is consistency. And she emphasized how consistency is the biggest guarantor of success, which it really is. If you do anything consistently, you are bound to be more successful because you are doing it more frequently. Well, thanks, guys. I hope you learned something from this episode with Sandhya. So I'm curious, what are your thoughts on these 4 things that Sandhya suggests for changing habits or implementing new habits? Do you agree with them? Do you think there's something she's missing? My information as well as her information is in the show notes. You can shoot me a message, shoot her a message. I'd love to hear from you guys. Thanks, guys, for tuning in to Amanda's Mindset. In case no one told you today, I'm proud of you, I'm rooting for you, and you got this. As always, if you enjoyed the show, I would really appreciate it if you would leave me a 5-star rating, leave a review, and share it with anyone you think would benefit from this. And don't forget, you are only one mindset shift away from shifting your life. Thanks, guys. Until next time.